In a post-truth reality, who will save the world, uncover the mysteries of the universe and build a vast multimedia empire to rival the likes of Genghis Khan? Join these two Aussie meat robots as they thrash out the weird and wonderful, the classified and supernatural, as well as their own inconceivable adventures on the podcast you had to have and never thought you needed. It's time for Hidden in Plain Sight.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Hidden in Plain Sight. I almost said welcome in plain sight. It's probably that too. But here we are yet again. How you doing, buddy?
I'm pretty good. It's raining here in the Blue Mountains. It's been raining a lot. In fact, a few days ago in Gross Valley, I don't know if you heard this, there was a massive rockfall. Massive.
Was there?
Oh, yeah, absolutely huge. The whole side of the mountain.
I didn't hear it. I'm pretty far away, you know?
That's true. You probably wouldn't hear it on the other side of the world, but the pictures of it is absolutely massive. It's like the whole side of a cliff wall's fallen down. I had something to do with the constant rain that we've been having. Apparently the most amount of rain in August since the 1830s, which is interesting time because that's going to be a time that we're going to be talking about tonight.
Oh, good. Well, me on the other hand, I'm sweating my nubs off. But by the way, I think I sent it to you the other day. Speaking of things that happened this week, just as a side note, one of the pubs I used to manage in Sydney, some people got shot at the other day.
Oh, which pub was
really
this?
Mean anything? That was the Harold Park Hotel.
Ah, okay. All right.
It was an interesting time only because I remember doing the Sydney, nothing to do with the shooting. I remember doing part of the Sydney Comedy Festival at the pub because the Harold Park used to be a famous comedy pub.
Uh-huh.
Robin Williams was there. Seinfeld was there. People used to go there to do warm-ups for tours. It was like this little kind of underground. Anyway, I hadn't been to a comedy club for years. We got the comedy festival back. Yeah, and it was chaos. So I was just thinking about that whole time, and I was like, "Wow, what an interesting." Anyway, that's all in the past.
It's all in the past.
It popped up this week in the news for
I
bad
thought that
reasons.
area was quite gentrified, and I don't know if that necessarily negates murders happening in a pub, but doesn't seem like that would happen.
Well, you lived there for ages. We lived there together for a bit.
Yeah, we did.
And that's when I started there, actually, when we were living together. Mm-hmm. Remember, I moved back to Sydney. I couldn't find a job to save my bloody life. I was looking everywhere.
I remember.
And I got the one in the Harold Park.
Yeah. I always enjoyed when you worked in a bar close by to where I lived because I could often turn up and just drink for free at that time. But I think by that stage, I might have just sobered up. Who knows?
You were sober. By the time I moved back from Czech, you'd already sobered up. By a short while.
Got on the wagon.
You were still smoking like a chimney. You were still smoking Marlboro Reds and drinking coffee. That's like a madman.
That's what I'm still drinking coffee like a madman. I don't smoke anymore, but I remember when I first stopped drinking, I could not stop smoking. And I remember the time that I actually stopped. I was smoking outside, and my daughter, who was like, I don't know, 6 months at the time or something like this, she was like crawling around on the ground, and like my ash from the cigarette just dropped nearer, and I went, this is not a good look.
I've got memories of being a kid and being with either my mum or my dad or mum and dad together in the car, which was basically on the edge of my memories. And it was normal on a hot Aussie summer's day. Mum was smoking Dunhill Reds. Dad was smoking Dunhill Reds. Us three kids in the car. Air conditioning was a thing then in the car. Still is, but that was a newer thing. Windows up. 40 degrees outside, chain smokers in the car, and just recycling all of that glorious goodness. It was great.
Interestingly, when I was 6 years old, my mum would send me down to the corner store to buy her a pack of cigarettes, and it was totally acceptable. I go, can I get a pack of Peter Stuyvesant 25s, please, for Mum?
So there we go. Yeah, for Mum.
No worries. And off I'd cycle back up. There you go, Mum. You can't do that anymore.
I can't. Sorry about that. Just doing a slight
little bit of an adjustment
on the fly.
It's a nanny state.
The branding in. The branding's covering up the other branding.
Look, he's got the Meat Robots T-shirt on, so bit of merch there. Yeah. We're
it's not the same one. I haven't been wearing the same one all week. It's a different one.
Oh, so you got two. Very nice.
I got two. I actually got more than two. I got a few different ones to try out the quality.
Yeah. And what's the verdict on the T-shirts?
Oh, it's the best I've ever worn. Everyone should get one.
Really?
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Really?
But we're not here to sell T-shirts. We're here to talk about phenomena. And today, I think for the next couple, we said we're going to head. We're still in the mountains. We're still going to stay where we kind of grew up, and we're going to go a little bit supernatural over the next couple of these. Highlight a few stories, places, ghostly vibes.
Yes.
Hopefully get a few people to tell their own stories, because we got a few mates and people that we know quite well.
Yeah.
One of them, Hursty, if Hursty's out there listening, he was on the TV. Remember that?
Well, Hursty and Joe, who we went to school with, actually, we've got some school photos of all of us together, actually, in the same class. Joanna, she was there. And
we were in the homeroom. She was in our homeroom. We were together.
She was in a homeroom, yeah. So Hursty and Joe married for many years. I was down at Active Automotives. There's a little plug for Hursty's business in Blaxland. He probably doesn't need it. He's got enough work getting there. Anyway, he runs I just popped in to get the car serviced, and he's been watching what we've been doing. And he just said to me, he said, hey, you won't believe this, but the house we used to live in, Glenbrook, had a poltergeist in it. And apparently they were on TV with some Australian psychic that came over to their house and did an examination. So, yeah, we should definitely get them on to talk about their poltergeistic experience.
I guess that leads, you just made up a word. That's good. So we're good at that. Poltergeistic. That'll be in the Urban Dictionary.
Yeah,
soon.
well, hopefully.
Did you say poltergeist dick? Is that what you said?
Yeah. It's like that that South Park episode, the fish stick one. Yeah.
Yeah, fish stick.
Yeah. Kanye couldn't work it out, and neither can I.
We won't go there.
No.
So we're going to touch on, that's part of what we're going to touch on. So we were discussing, as leading into this, about some of our own feelings about supernatural phenomena, but also we were discussing specific places around the mountains. And I know that we identified at least a few where a lot of stories seem to revolve around. So Glenbrook is one.
Yep.
That's one town where there seems to be a lot of stories comes out of Glenbrook.
Absolutely.
And it's a pretty small place, relatively, Glenbrook. Like, it's not...
Yeah, it's a village, really. It's a small village and a lot of people there. It's a very nice spot. Nice spot in the mountains to live, but also very haunted. My mum is working on a story because she had some pretty crazy stories that happened to her when she lived in Glenbrook. Yeah.
Can't wait to hear from Marge.
Yeah.
Also, there's that quite substantial... isn't there underground military base right there on the Lapston Hill, in just on the edge of Glenbrook?
Okay, well, certainly there's an above ground military base that's the part of the Air Force there in Lapston.
Well,
so you think there's something underground there?
Well, let's just say one of my best mates in primary school, his dad worked there. He was stationed, he was a disciplinary sergeant, and they were living right next to the base on the grounds, and we used to go trekking through that bush a lot. And I'm telling you, if there's nothing in that hill, it's pretty strange, the couple of tunnels, very fortified concrete, large tunnels that lead in and out that are hidden. That we used to play army men down there, and we'd get freaked out. There's these big like big enough, literally you could drive a couple of buses side by side into these tunnels. Yeah. And strangely enough, they were carved into rock, into the rock, and there wasn't really any roads leading to them. So it was quite an odd...
Was that, do you think that was part of the Air Force base, or do you think it might be like pre like Air Force, maybe like early colony kind of building?
No, I believe it's part of the Air Force base. It may have been dug, but on various occasions we heard weird sounds coming out of that place. It freaked us out, and we'd go there, we'd hang out there for a bit, and then run away because it was weird. But the Japanese had Glenbrook in World War II.
Well, that's
Glenbrook was one of the places that they were going to drop a bomb on. Now, it's an odd one, right? That was one of their primary targets if they were going to bomb Australia.
Well, very interestingly, the bridge across Nepean River is still fortified from the Second World War, completely enclosed in iron, that bridge, which has the train and obviously the cars go across, still drive across it quite often. And it's a very strange kind of bridge, but apparently built for the Second World War to resist the Imperial Japanese Navy.
Yes.
The submarines coming up to
Glenbrook.
Whoa. That's a long way to come. That's a long way to come in a submarine. I don't think you'd make it past the weir.
It'd be pretty funny, though. It'd be pretty funny. It'd be funny. You're just down there fishing for your carp, and all of a sudden,
Well,
nuclear sub pops up.
I'm sure stranger things have happened. Please send me the coordinates, and I will go and check it out. I'll go and have a look at this spot and see if I can take some footage.
It's neither here nor there. I'm not going to swear there's a base under there, but judging from the personnel that used to work there, another one of our mates' dads, Matt Cleary, maybe we can track Matt down and see, because his dad used to work there, and his dad was super straighty 180. Cool dude, but real like staunch, and I never got much out of him, but maybe he's
maybe it was being Matt's dad that made him like that.
Well,
you know,
the whole. So anyway, the military bases aside, we talked about Blackheath is a spot. There's a large Buddhist temple up there.
Okay, Blackheath,
which has been there
another
since
spot.
late 70s, early 80s, and there's a lot of stuff that happens in and around Blackheath, Katoomba, Wentworth Falls is a hot spot, which we mentioned last.
We both live there.
Rock.
Yep, Turtle Rock.
Yeah,
Grandview Hotel.
Grandview Hotel. You going down to Woodford is another place. Woodford. What's the suburb just before Woodford? You got the Woodford Bends, and there's that little before
Linden.
it. So when you're going up Mount Linden,
and
there's that weird park on the side before you get to the Bends. You can pull off from that park, and there's those really old explorers. I don't know, dungeons or caves or something down there. It's really strange. It's a bit freaky.
Well, it's got a storied past. There are many people that I guess were more or less indentured laborers that built the road across the mountain.
Lots of people died
in early colonial times, and it would have been pretty brutal past as the colony expanded in New South Wales. So
I mean, you and I have done our fair share of trekking through the bush there.
Yeah,
and imagine times where there's no corner shops, no running water, no nothing, and you're trekking through that thick mountains of bush, up and down cliffs and rocks, and trying to cut pathways through it and all that. It'd be pretty hectic. But I guess like a lot of the towns up and down the mountains have their stories, but some of them are quite like. There's a famous one, the Hydro Majestic in Medlow Bath.
Yes, is
very nice place
spot for high tea. Apparently,
high tea, and it's. I remember growing up as a kid. It was every time we drive past. Oh, there's the haunted hotel. There's the haunted hotel. And
it looks a bit like the Overlook Hotel from The Shining. It's got that kind of vibe about it, doesn't it? Yeah,
and it has that vibe when you go there.
Yeah,
when we stopped off there to check it out when it reopened way back in it was closed for a long time. I think it reopened in the early 2000s. Thinking, and anyway. I dropped in there to check it out, and it was odd. Like, okay, I didn't go in there with the idea that it wasn't haunted.
Yes.
But when you pull up in the car park and you go inside, The Shining is what it exactly reminded me of. It was full on.
It's interesting. I think one of the things we've been talking about a bit is like, where do we stand on these particular type of stories? Because it sounds like, we're all in. We think it's haunted. We think that there's ghostly things. But I guess there's a couple of different ways to look at it. You've got some people that would say, no, that's all rubbish. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing. And then there's people that, maybe more inclined like we are to go, oh, could love a story and that kind of stuff. And then I guess there's another way to look at it as well, which is it something completely different than a haunting? Is it something else that's happening?
That's what we've been talking about for a long time. And you kind of got, like most things in life, you've got two teams, the red team, the blue team, the red pill, the blue pill, the Panthers versus the Raiders, whatever it might be. We tend to kind of get easily drawn into taking a side. And by taking a side, either being a believer or a skeptic, I think there's folly in both, because you get one-eyed about something. Like they'll say the one-eyed Panthers supporter or the one-eyed Liverpool supporter.
Yeah.
Your team does something dodgy and you kind of go, oh, no, it's all right. That's fair play. The other team does something dodgy. You want to shoot them. I guess in between all of that, have discussed for a long time trying to take away, I guess, all of the fluff and look at a few practical things, because we have had experiences. People we know have had experiences. Some of them may have been hallucinations.
Yeah, right.
But if they weren't, how can we possibly have these phenomena occurring to lots and lots of people around the globe, but we don't have legitimate, and this is what a skeptic will say, where's the legitimate photos? Where's the legitimate videos? Where's all the proof?
Yep.
And it's like, well, what if we look at it slightly differently in that, as we've discussed many times, it's to do with resonance and frequency, maybe of a place, of a person, or a combination of those things.
Well, it's interesting you say red pill, blue pill, because I have something with me tonight, which is called The Red Book. It's such
look at it.
It's actually
Jesus, did they have a
massive.
bigger one, or
apparently it only comes in this size. So
pocket size, yeah.
Liber Novus, or The Red Book by Carl Jung. And the reason I brought this down tonight was for sheer comedy value, because it's so massive. And
I think so. But that's, I imagine, like, there's no ego there. It's like, sir, we've printed your book. It's not big enough. When someone's reading this on the train, I want them to know they're reading it.
Exactly. It's not the kind of book that you can look at without being noticed. But I think the interesting thing, because Jung, he famously broke from his, I guess, relationship with Freud as two peer psychoanalysts of the early 20th century, because Freud thought the world of spirituality was nonsense. He said it was ridiculous. He was a materialist, whereas Jung had, ever since being a really young kid, had a really kind of profound spiritual connection or paranormal connection. However, he was a scientist. He was first and foremost a doctor of medicine, a doctor of psychiatry, and he looked at things from an empirical way. And his work is fascinating. And I think the thoughts of the thoughts of Jung, now in comparison to, or now related to, like modern understanding of quantum physics, which he was having conversations with very prominent physicists of the time, would start to link some of the stuff that we're talking about with the phenomena that exists within particle or quantum physics that, we can't necessarily describe how the universe works, but it opens up an expression of the extraordinary. The other reason I mention Jung is because, like, there's been a certain part of me that's always kind of wanted to know more about this kind of stuff. Like, ever since I was a kid, I've asked these
questions. Right?
Yeah, and absolutely. And I'm at a point in my life, that midpoint in your life where you're kind of like, well, what does this really mean? And I think part of this podcast and talking and having these conversations and opening up these conversations for me is a way of following this path. And I don't know if I don't know where it's going, but I do know that there is something in here, and certainly really deep connection to Jung's work, that's opening up some doors for me. So I'm going to keep on that path.
Keep that massive book. And also, it's a good workout. Like, they really thought ahead. You can just really pump those guns.
You work out your mind and your spirit, as well as the
body at the same time.
The body, and the pec. That's it. Get all those three things in place. Yeah. So man.
I thought it'd be cool, maybe, so to launch into it, there's a few stories that jumped to my mind when we said, let's share a few ghost stories. I've had a few of my own, but the few of them stood out to me from various people about the place.
Yep.
And one of them that stood out to me was, I was living in Blackheath for a short period of time. Now, there's a part of this story that connects to me, but I won't so much go into it because it'll take a while to tell. I'll just tell the first part of the story. So I was living with a partner in a place called Godson Avenue.
Okay.
And it was if you're into numerology, it was 33. No, it was 22. I get confused. The reason I'm confused, right near us lived a dude that everyone called Crazy Pat. And he was part of the whole old English hippie brigade. He's an Aussie guy, grew up in England, moved back to Australia, and he was just a bit out there, very out there dude. Looked like a little wizard, grey hair, grey beard, little round Harry Potter glasses. Okay. Actually, he looked like bloody old Harry Potter. Anyway, so he lived in 33 and I lived in 22, or the opposite. I actually can't remember, but I lived there for a short period of time. My partner, one night I'd gone out to play a show. She decided to stay in the house. And like normal, all cool. So I came back from the show at 2 in the morning. And I come in the door and I notice there's a small light on in the bedroom. I'm like, oh, she's still awake. And I come around the corner. She's just sat there, bolt upright in the bed, eyes alert, awake, not blinking, not doing anything, going, it's you? I'm like, yeah, who the hell were you expecting? She goes, oh my God, thank God you're home. And just kind of fell apart, basically. I was like, what's going on? I'm thinking, was someone trying to break in? And she's like, someone was playing the guitar while you were gone. I thought you were home already. I was like, what are you talking about? So she says we had a bunch of instruments, and we had an acoustic guitar that we'd actually brought from Czech Republic. It was an old family heirloom, really old Czech-made art shop acoustic. So she said she was sound asleep, and during her dreams and half awake state, she could hear a guitar strumming. And as she kind of came out of the sleep state into the awake state, it was definitely a guitar strumming. She said she heard a couple of chords, couple of strummed out chords, and she called out to me. She said she thought it was weird. It was quite late, but she called out, "Oh, you're home." And then this chord stopped. Guitar stopped. And she was like, Josh, nothing. And she started to get a really eerie feeling. She said she kind of looked out from the bed around the bedroom door, could see into the lounge room space where the guitar was, and it looked like the guitar, someone had just put it down, so it had been put face down leaning against the table. And because of the tension on the strings on a guitar, if you lean it on its strings, it'll just bounce for sometimes it'll go forever. It'll just kind of ding ding ding. And she said it was doing that. She could hear the sound of the guitar, and she just froze, realized immediately something wasn't right, and just waited. She was like, I don't know, and she just literally was in that mode of complete paralysis until I got back.
So the question could be, did someone come in the house and play the guitar when you were not there? Is that a possibility that someone, I don't know, wandered in?
Well, let's put it this way. It's a pretty isolated place where we lived.
Certainly is.
It was a small house. It was just like a bedroom and a lounge room and a kitchen. It was a pretty small cottage kind of thing. Everything was locked up when I left. And at this stage, it was about 12:31 in the morning.
And was it locked when you came back? Did you have to unlock it?
It was locked, I had to unlock it.
Yeah, right, okay.
So she didn't hear any noise aside from the guitar. Like, it was such a small place. If you heard someone even quietly trying to walk off or get out the window or something, you'd hear it.
So
the moment she woke up and when the guitar stopped, it was just, she said the feeling, did this happen in her or did it happen externally or both? She said all of a sudden everything just went cold. Boom.
Right, okay.
And she just froze in place. It literally sat there for about an hour without moving, I think without blinking, barely breathing, like so afraid to go into the place. There's another part to that story which happened later, which is a longer one, but I think this is an interesting part. This was because I felt it. When I came home and I saw her, I felt this weird, I'm going to call it buzzing.
Yeah.
There's this weird electricity in the air. And I think that was inside of me. It was inside of her, but it felt like genuinely something had happened, like something had been there and gone and it had left a mark, if that makes sense. And that particular house, I only lived there for a short period of time. I don't think it was even 6 months. And lots of interesting stuff happened there. Lots of interesting stuff. But that was the most, I guess, powerful and obvious.
It's interesting how these things play out and how they can influence sound, they can influence objects. So obviously poltergeist or some sort of spiritual control of an object. I don't know what that might be necessarily.
If we're talking residual and intelligent haunting, so residual is something that's referred to as almost like a replay of energy.
Yeah.
Something that just appears and disappears and doesn't appear to interact with anyone. It just does its own thing, walks through walls or cooks, stands at a stove that's not there. And then an intelligent haunting is believed to be something that interacts with people, objects, or both. And could be a demon, could be poltergeist, something that's kind of negative and unhealthy, or it could be something that's healthy and light.
It's interesting, this idea of maybe a spirit or some sort of energy interacting with people in an intelligent way, because that's happened to me a couple of times in the Blue Mountains. We were living in a place in Chapman Parade, which is on the Falcon Bridge, actually very close to a very famous gallery, Norman Lindsay's gallery. Norman Lindsay was a famous painter, and
that beautiful garden, right?
Yeah, had the beautiful gardens and lived in the Blue Mountains, and they made a film about him that Elle Macpherson was in called Sirens.
I remember that.
Oh, you remember that movie? Well, Paradise Pools, which is up in Linden, which we talked about earlier, that's where he used to paint A lot of a lot of the models that would come and model for him. So yeah, that was just up the road from us, and we were only there for about a year. And this particular time, two things happened that were really quite interesting there. One was an interaction with a pet that had passed away. Now, we had this beautiful dog by the name of Hamish. He was a Weimaraner. He was a stray dog that had turned up at Valley Heights. My dad ended up writing a whole story about him because he was such a quirky kind of character of a dog. Weimaraners are very intelligent. They're very beautiful animals, but Hamish definitely thought he was a human being, like 100%. They were suggesting that maybe the people that had him before us kind of treated him like that, he was a child. I know. There we go. The lights, they often
happened
change.
again.
They often change when I start to tell these stories.
When you hit a certain frequency, right? You're in a certain place right now and those lights are going.
I know. Isn't that interesting? Because I can feel the kind of hairs on my back of my neck just standing up.
I can see your eyes lighting up, and your eyes lit up, and then the moment that happened, the lights went off.
He was
they go purple.
Hamish was like, he was my dog. Like he was really, connected to the family in a big way, and he got really sick. He got the cancer of the throat, and we had to take him to the vet. And I was the one that took him to the vet when they put him to sleep. And I remember being there with him and seeing him breathe his last breath. And that was quite profound to sort of see a creature that you love, a spirit, leave his body in a way, and just that last breath that went out. Anyway, I buried him in the backyard at Chapman Parade. And yeah, it was obviously quite an emotional thing for me. But very interestingly, 2 weeks after he died, my brother Greg, who wasn't living with us at the time, my oldest brother, he's about 13 years older than I, he'd come to visit. And my sister-in-law, Louise, Pat's wife, she was also visiting us at the same time. And both of them independently over that weekend that they were staying with us complained about Hamish being inside and causing havoc. Now, the reason is that Hamish had a very particular type of sound as he moved around the house. And he had a very peculiar smell. It was kind of like a nervous dog smell that, was quite pungent in a way. And, it was back in those days where we were like the family that had dogs on the outside and not on the inside. I look back and I see it as, maybe a bit cruel, but, that was
we were
the way
same.
it was.
We were the same.
Outside
Animals
dogs,
lived outside.
And, that was the vibe. But both Greg and Louise swore that Hamish was inside.
Wow.
And we all stopped and looked at them and said, guys, Hamish has been dead for a couple of weeks. He's buried in the backyard. It was so interesting because they were adamant that they had felt or heard and smelt Hamish being around. And around about that time, I had a very profound dream about him coming in my dream to talk to me. And it's a dream that I have often when I lose a family member. It happened when I lost my grandmother. It happened when I lost my dad. It happened when I lost my great aunt, where I have a conversation after they've passed with them. And the conversation usually goes around the idea of me, in a way, not instructing them, but having a conversation with them to remind them that they're no longer here on earth. And it's always in the same place. It's in this house that's abandoned, that's all broken down and falling apart.
Wow.
And I had that conversation with Hamish kind of telepathically, and he was really sad. He wanted to stay. He really wanted to stay with us. And I was like, hey, you got to go, buddy. It's time to move on. So that was a kind of, I guess, sort of an intelligent experience of an interaction with a spirit that I had both in dream and also
it's quite a common story.
Yeah.
Like pets and animal hauntings is probably more common than we'd realize. Like there's lots of famous places around the mountains that are famous for animal hauntings. One of them is the Grandview in Wentworth Falls.
Okay.
They see apparitions, but they see a lot of cats.
Okay.
There's cats, there's ghost cats. And it's the same for Lillian Fells. Lillian Fells in Lura.
Yep.
Or Katoomba. It's on the border somewhere there. Yep. It's quite a famous resort, basically, where you'd have a lot of even Hollywood stars.
Yeah.
And there's even, there was like pretty highfalutin wealthy people reporting seeing cats and stuff roaming around the buildings where there's none. And you could say, oh, whatever, a stray cat got in. But it's like, yeah, okay. But when you get a lot of reports of various different styles of apparition in a place, you think possibly there might be something going on. Possibly.
The other thing that happened at that place in Chapman Parade was a conscious interaction with an animal that wasn't ghostly, but it was very, very uncanny. The best way I could describe it was uncanny. So I woke up early Saturday morning. I was about 17 at the time, and I knew I had to travel down to Sydney because I was doing some extracurricular acting, drama-based stuff down in the city at a place called Level Crossing, and it was connected to ATYP, and we were doing this fun stuff. And I had to go there every Saturday, and was from the Blue Mountains, so you'd have to travel quite a way. So I wanted to get a sleep in, but I knew I had to get up. And I was woken up that morning by a kookaburra coming to my window on the second level of my room, in the same house. And the kookaburra was making its kookaburra noises quite loudly on my windowsill, and it's what woke me up. And it was very odd for a kookaburra to come that close to a house or be like deliberately trying to wake me up in this.
Trying to interact.
Yeah, trying to interact. And I was like, this is weird. I was looking at the kookaburra and I was like, all right, that's too strange for that to be going on. But I didn't think much more of it. So I went downstairs to have a drink of water, get ready to go to Sydney. And then I looked out of the kitchen window when I was drinking the water, and we had a pool down a hill at this particular place that we were staying in for that year. And inside the pool, there was another kookaburra, and it was drowning. And the kookaburra that was on my window still had flown down to the side of the pool and was waiting next to the pool, almost as if to say, help my buddy. My buddy's drowning. I can't get him out, but you can. So I ran down the hill, jumped in the pool, grabbed the kookaburra out, very gently, and brought him back up. And we dried him off, and Mum and Dad got like a blow dryer, and we dried his feathers off, and he flew away. I've always had that kind of beautiful connection to that moment in time to say like, oh, that's a real kind of intelligent interaction with another species, another life.
And how did it know to come and find you? If we're talking about like, maybe it didn't, like it's just a theory, right? But if we're talking about certain people have certain energies or connections or frequencies, did it go knock on all your parents' windows or all your house windows? Or did it literally go, that's the guy? Like, he's the one who's going to help me.
Well, I think this brings me back to a couple of things. So doing all of this particular work and reconnecting with you artistically through music and through the podcast and through writing the story about the island, and we're going to talk more about that soon. But doing all of this particular work has really kind of fired me up. And what I remember and what I recall it being 17 years at the time, because I was looking back at some photos that we put into these podcasts from another time, is I realized the energy and the connection of that time, a couple of years after being 17, was really quite fired up and quite alive. I guess it's that time of life in a way. I've got a 17-year-old daughter now, and like life is pretty open and pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I feel like there was some kind of connectivity going on inside of me that was really open and really vibrating or resonating in a certain type of way. So
touching on that, I know that at that time you and I mean, it's a nice way to describe it or think of it, but I think it's quite real. You and I think were doing some artistic and creative stuff that was quite beyond our years at that time as well, when it comes to music and all of these things, which I look back on and I go, where did that come from? Like, how did I know that stuff then?
Well, let's talk about that, because that brings up another very interesting place in the Blue Mountains, which is the school that we went to, St. Columba's High School, a Catholic college that was originally a seminary training priests for many years before that. Very old place.
One of the oldest buildings in the Blue Mountains, right?
One of the oldest buildings in the Blue Mountains, and our connection of us operating on a frequency that certainly was beyond our scope or our skill at the time. We played in one of the old halls there. There was my family's Steinway, with a good friend of our, Luke O'Callaghan, playing the Steinway Grand in the Brower Hall, which is this really beautiful old wooden, ornate kind of long hall that you'd have in a kind of a beautiful old.
It was all wood. It was all like old oak or old stained oak. Like it's pretty full on.
My architectural description is not really good at the moment, but it was a beautiful, beautiful hall. The Steinway Grand was there. You were playing bass,
bass.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And I was playing saxophone. And look, I'm not a great sax player, but all of us that day, we just got together. It was after school. We were just, there was no one else around, and we just locked into like a, I don't know, how long did we play
T-Monk or a Miles Davis or some kind of like jam of those guys that are like way beyond where we were.
I mean, maybe that was just playing out in our mind, but I felt that moment really clearly. It was just something that we were just operating on a frequency at that particular time in our lives.
Something switched on in all of us. Like, it was just after school. It was the last time we played with Luke for a long time anyway. Yeah. Like, he then went off and did his own thing. And it literally one of those days, we're in the hall, standing up one end on the stage. The acoustics in there were amazing. The sun was shining through the windows on one side. We're all up there on the stage, and we all just somehow went into a zone and spent like half an hour or 40 minutes just surfing in places that we shouldn't have been able at that point in time to surf.
I guess,
and it's a combination of maybe we felt that way about ourselves. Maybe if we heard a recording back, we'd go, "Oh," but it doesn't. Does it matter? Are we talking about proof and existence and what's real? If it's real for us and we shared that experience and it affected our lives for the better or worse, does that not in some way make it real? Is that not a definition of reality?
Well, it absolutely makes it real for us at that particular time. And yeah, I think when I think about that moment in time, the best way I can describe it is that our spirits were willing, but if we have to think about the actual discipline in our own playing, the flesh was weak at that time, but both body, mind, and spirit just came together in that moment, and we were just locked into some epic jazz. Well,
that's something we've discussed as well, and something we both actually train on a daily basis. It's the idea of body, mind, and spirit. So it's the idea that oftentimes we're directed or running on standby almost, and to get to a point of mastery, you got to get to the point where your soul and resonance overcomes the physical reality, which means you're able to do stuff that's extraordinary.
Now, we're going to have to take a little break for a moment because this is about to switch off. But I think we should leave people with a little clip from the Mighty Boosh about us learning not to fear jazz.
Oh, good.
I don't know if you know that little bit, but I want to pop that in there because at that point in our lives, we did fear jazz for a while. But in that moment in Brower Hall, we had the right juju going.
We were jazz. We were voodoo.
We were voodoo magic.
Baron Samedi.
Absolutely. All right. See you soon.
He's in a trance, a jazz trance. Every day he does this. It's a pretty delicate procedure getting him out.
I'm really vibing on the Mighty Boosh at the moment. It's something I didn't quite get into.
I tried to get you into that, remember?
Did you?
Mikey, we played with a bass player and he was into the Mighty Boosh, and I love the Mighty Boosh, and you were like, ah.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good it's hit you.
Yeah. Big shout out to Mikey Nemeth. G'day, Mikey.
Hey, Mikey. Hey, it just reminded me of something. I've got one or two stories about St. Columba's, but it just hit me in the break. You remember the we're talking about animals and perception and sixth sense. Remember the Newcastle earthquake when we were kids, like 80?
I do.
Yeah, 86, 85,
no, it's
87.
after that. It's after that. Yeah, we'll figure it out. It'll come up right now.
Late 80s.
We're going to put the date right here, right now.
We were living in Yellow Rock, Singles Ridge. Actually, there's another weird coincidence that you and I. See, we lived on Singles Ridge.
Tell us about the earthquake.
We lived on Singles Ridge way back in the day. We still had like tank water and stuff. There was no kind of, was one of those way out towards the Yellow Rock lookout.
Yep.
And we were supposed to go on holiday to Coffs Harbour.
Nice.
It was like January, school holidays. We're going to go to Coffs Harbour.
Yep.
Yeah, go through the Big Banana, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And we were late leaving, and we had two cats at the time.
Yeah.
And the cats were youngish, but the cats were normally chilled and they did their own thing. This particular day, we were trying to leave, and they kept like getting into the motor of the car. They were climbing up on the wheel hub and getting into and Mum was getting pissed. So this took like, one of the cats went in there. It took about an hour and a half, 2 hours to get him out of the bloody thing. Anyway, but as a consequence, Mum had to stop in Springwood, and a few things happened. We're about 3 hours late, right?
Right.
So we drove from Yellow Rock to Springwood. We parked in the car park, which was the main car park, Clancy's or IGA wasn't there.
Yeah.
It was that little car park on the other side, downside of the hill, near the anyway. No one knows. I'm talking to you. If anyone else knows where it is. Anyway,
good.
There's an old car park, and we're in there. Mum goes up to the shop or something, and as we're sitting there, the car's shaking.
Oh,
and we were like, "What the hell was that?" I'm like, fuck, I don't know.
Earthquake.
Anyway, of course, then we hit the road and we found out through the radio and all the traffic and stuff, there's an epic earthquake hit Newcastle. And if the cats hadn't have buggered up the trip, we were going to be pretty damn close to Newcastle when the quake hit.
So you think the cat saved your life?
Well, the cats never did it before and they never did it since. Only on that day, both the cats decided to climb up into the motor bay of the car.
They know. They
didn't want us going.
Animals know. I mean, it's the same when it comes to rain and ants. You know, as soon as it's going to rain, the ants go nuts. They know. They know it's coming. I think they use that kind of different type of perception of the natural environment as a way of surviving. And it's something we probably could have done as a species for a long time.
Well, it's something we can do. This is what we're touching on. Yeah. So we're touching. It brings me to this massive book.
Brings me back to this massive book because I think there are a lot of the stuff that we're talking about. Yeah, no, it's totally ridiculous. But a lot of the things we're talking about is working on this level of the paranormal because I think, there is, obviously there's a material world that we live in, but then there's something very different. There's a world that's underneath the material that we're conscious of and maybe don't have the opportunity to connect with.
What about this for a theory? That animals are kind of renowned to have this sensibility. Yeah. Is it electricity? Is it waves? Like, obviously, if an earthquake's going to hit, it doesn't just manifest immediately. There would be signs leading up to that. And what if we weren't so distracted by our own bullshit and being in the front of our eyes and in standby and thinking about, oh, what am I going to have for lunch? Oh, is she sexy? Does she like me? Does he like me? What are the, all of this nonsense?
A lot of distractions.
Maybe if we weren't there all the time, we might be a little bit more susceptible to these fabulous experiences or connecting to, I like to call it the Wi-Fi of frequencies, resonances, and phenomena, basically. It's phenomena.
I think you do see that with most country people or most people that live on the land or live with the land or live on country is that the
rains are coming.
Yeah, well, they know they can see those patterns, and if you stare at them long enough, that they appear.
Yes, if you're not distracted, if you have
those kind of things. Here's a basic one. I know this is probably pretty small, but you can buy something like I've got over here, which is like a type of device that measures humidity in different types of material. So like you've got bricks, you've got wood, you've got a whole bunch of stuff. You can buy a device like that, but there's old ways to do this as well, and I only found that out because we have a wood fire heater upstairs, and I had to go, all right, which wood is ready to be burnt? And one of the old tricks that you do is you drop it on the ground, and if it makes a sound like metal, then it's ready to burn.
If it's hollow, you burn it. Yeah.
Well, it's not hollow. It's just.
If it thuds, it's wet.
It's wet. It's just wet wood. It's got a ting to it. Yeah. So you're listening for those things. And I know that's super basic, but I think that's part of the thing that we're disconnected with. And, Jung, going back to Jung, he talks a lot about growing up in a kind of natural environment. And I saw something, I believe it was on The Guardian very recently, that our connection to human nature, human beings connecting to nature has dwindled by something like 60% in the last, I don't know how many years. Like, we don't spend time out there. We are literally not connecting to the thing that keeps us alive and keeps us going.
Dude. We're isolating further and further. Even our the software we're working on, the indoctrinated idea of where we're living as a species is quite distanced from anything kind of. It's been systematic. If you look at our history so far and look at it over the last few centuries, there's certainly a rush towards something that is what we call technology, but it's actually this. It's kind of like a weird robotic kind of strange existence.
Yeah, and I think that's the what was the name of the Transformer home planet? Do you remember the name of it?
No,
You don't
no.
remember the name of it, but it was a whole planet that was kind of completely mechanized,
Yes.
completely covered in machines. And I always felt so sad looking at that place. The Transformers loved it because they're a race of machines, obviously, but it does feel like that is the coercive energy that is pushing us further and further and further into that place. And there are a
Yeah.
few real champions for that idea of let's transcend, let's go post-human. And some of the post-humanists that are out there, their connection to humanity and their connection to what they think, you know, our I'm going out on a limb now, but I'm saying that some of this stuff is not very healthy, and I don't think it's healthy for human society and human people, democracy, whatever that might be. I don't think it's helpful or a happy place for those kind of things. Maybe I'm out on a limb, but that's my thoughts.
Look, if we're there's one glaring problem I think that still exists, and we're still reinventing the wheel, and we feel we must reinvent the wheel. It's like an obsession.
Yeah.
And if we're going under an overriding religion of money or adding and having all of this stuff, we're still following the same kind of schematic, the same blueprint. Whereas when I was younger, I didn't quite understand. I mean, I heard a lot of stories about from a white history perspective, from the books we grew up with.
Yeah.
Of the world.
Yeah.
But I also was surrounded by, and I've mentioned it before, these great bookshelves at home with all kinds of different information books and encyclopedias, and I could look at all these different wonders, and I could see an anomaly. Something doesn't make sense here. Like, it doesn't make sense that we're just now becoming advanced. It doesn't make sense that the world for a long time was Neanderthals. It only makes sense if we're following the current narrative, because if we're to imagine a culture that was able to exist more harmoniously with its environment and with the beings of this planet that are non-human, more harmoniously with geometry and music and astrology and all of these things, they had no need for skyscrapers. There was no need for Ferraris. There was no need for anything.
Completely different paradigm. Completely different paradigm.
An existence where the world that was there and in front of them, the day-to-day, like, journey of surviving and living is the point that we're missing. I think now we think we're alive, we're literally breathing, but we're like this, it's like the Matrix. We're connected to these tubes and we're just in a stasis somewhere in a bubble going ooh, and having all these piped in experiences.
And I think art does it. I mean, I guess films do it in such an interesting way. We've made a couple of film references or story references. Matrix. I think one film that really nailed this a long time, probably before many other people did, was 2001 Space Odyssey.
Oh, yeah.
The Arthur C. Clarke novel that Stanley Kubrick adapted. And I think that's where we're at right at this point in time. And this idea of, a challenge between humanity having to transcend what it is right now to become almost godlike. I mean, that's where we end up at the end of that film.
That's what I was going to say before. It's the God obsession. Like, we have to feel like we have to create our own. We've got the Bible. The Bible tells us something, or many works, and we've got to create our own kind of
version. Yeah, and I don't know if I think there's many unhealthy things about this kind of constant pursuit of more and
more. Greed. There is a greed with which we have agreed. Yeah.
It's almost like it's a kind of illness. It's like a sickness. It's inside the culture that just makes us want to consume and consume and consume. And
but you know what's even funnier, or you know what's even funnier, ironically?
What is?
Most people, not only, here comes the book again. Most people don't realize it exists, or adversely, they celebrate it. So it's a celebration of this illness. So it's almost like I go back to this one thing that struck me when we went to Catholic school, and I heard the stories about the Christians and the lions, and I was like, how could people sit around and watch someone feed someone to an animal and cheer it on? Like, that was never in my mind as something that would be something to celebrate, especially en masse. But then I look out the window, or I look at the world outside, and I look in the eyes of a bunch of people, and I go, aha, that's how it happens.
There's a
how it happens.
There's a really interesting podcast called Hardcore History, which talks all about the idea of torture as entertainment and pain as entertainment, and how it's been a part of culture for a very long period of time, and how it links back to the idea of blood rituals. You know, if we think about our upbringing as Catholics, Christians, one of the rites and a ritual is a blood ritual of putting someone to death on a cross to atone,
body, drink the blood,
and to drink their blood and to eat their body. You know, we are steeped in a culture of blood rituals, and that then feeds into the idea of, you know, you've got like during you know, medieval French times where people were being tortured, but they would go willingly to the torture and execution because whatever crime they had committed, if they bled for that crime in that public execution for the king, they could atone for what they had done. And that's
a pretty old scam, isn't it? It just seems like a snake oil salesman going, well, if you got me, okay.
It's a great form of control, but it's also, it's exactly what we do right now. Like if you look,
exactly what we
do. You know, I switch on Netflix with my kids and, you know, I'm pretty proud of them because I think they're quite switched on because, you know, Patty turned around to me and said, you know, everything I look at is just the same. It's the same information. It's the same narrative. It's the same type of movie we continue to make. And what is it? It's like people, well, in a lot of the films that have been made is like people with weapons and guns and the hero and the valiant and all this kind of
sex and lust and guns.
Well, yeah,
and
CGI kind of explosions and violence. Like a really strong expression of violence against one person against another, goodies versus baddies, all this kind of stuff. And it's just another form of like bloodless entertainment that is like that we sit around, we watch with
reinforcing the script. It's reinforcing the script. Even if you're passive, this is worse. If you're passive to all of this, you are just having all this stuff downloaded into you. I think that's the right word to use because that's what it's like. If we don't think that this is not done on purpose, like I think we need to rethink it, because when I say on purpose, it doesn't mean there's someone sitting there, oh, Dr. Evil, I'm now going to put, it's just, it's a sign of who we are. So that if we share, our language dictates our purpose. Our art dictates our purpose. And most people don't question that. They're so obsessed. Most artists I know are more obsessed with being recognized, known, famous, understood than they are with creating compelling pieces of art.
Yeah, well, that's so interesting because, I mean, even making, like, that has been a major paradigm shift for me personally, is getting to a point where you realize that no one, you know, whatever you're waiting for, it's never really going to really look or feel the same way. It is an empty room that's suddenly filled with light and then it's gone and it's just over. And it's just like that idea of fame and celebrity.
Fucking fairy floss. You put it in your mouth, it disappears.
Ephemeral. And I think the thing that's always inspired me is the idea of just doing the work. And you know what? Look, I'm not famous. I don't claim to have had many experiences, but I've spent time with people that have reached these great heights. And I've also seen how in many ways it can, you know, they're just normal people that have with a lot of focus on them. And I think it can become kind of very empty and very hollow.
Well, let's put it this way. Like if the world works as it does, and then the macro and the micro are very similar, if something is empty, if you put more focus on it, it's not necessarily going to become full. You're just going to notice how empty it really is. And then you have to cover it with stuff. So this is what we're surrounded by all the time, these covered empty vessels. So it looks beautiful, and you take the book off the shelf and you open it up and it's like, it's nothing on the pages, man. Like, but it doesn't matter. The shelf, look how many books I have on my shelf and look how colorful they all are. So So the structure that we're trying to reinforce, whether it's celebrity, whether it's violence against another human being, they are just manufacturing the same. But it's all still teams. It's all still one versus the other. That's the bottom line. It's either one fucking the other, one loving the other, one hating the other, one at war with the other, one v the other.
Yeah.
And it's solidifying a duality and a gap inside ourselves, because we all have that, the angel and the devil. Should I, shouldn't I? We all have that shit going on, which...
Yeah, well, having spent many years involved in the world of like creating dramatic work or telling stories in that way, I mean, that's something that's fundamental to the idea of story structure itself, is the idea of conflict.
Yes.
It's hard to tell a story that's engaging without some sort of dramatic conflict that's there.
Sure.
And to have that conflict, it's usually there's got to be antagonistic forces that are pushing against each other. So it's been questioned.
It's a language we understand. Yeah. It's a language we understand. If we're trying to tell a story, we got to speak the language that the people that we're speaking to understand.
Yeah, and I think
Catch-22.
There are other ways around that. There's an interesting book called The Third Side, which is a study of what a group of in Africa were doing. Is there was two warring groups, and there would be a third group that their job was to steal the weapons from the warring side and hide them in the desert. And this particular story is so interesting for me, of like not only just having two sides, but having a third side, which is a side for peace, a side for saying, hey, no more. That's enough of this. And it's so interesting because we've got this red book here, and one of the key ideas in this red book, I know I'm going to bring it up again. No, I won't do that. But one of his main visions Jung had was just before this First World War. He had a vision, like a really profound, intense vision of Europe running with blood. And this is just before the First World War. And that moment in history was so intense and so cataclysmic that it's completely changed the world that we lived in. It's shaped the rest of the 20th century.
Absolutely.
And it's still playing out right now. Those lines on maps that were drawn after the First World War are still creating those kind of problems that we've got right now. And now 2025, like over 110 years after the First World War ended, or around about that, what's Europe doing at the moment? What's America doing? This rearming? Let's go. So
how advanced are we? So in the last 125 years, we think we've advanced. So where have we gone?
It's so
what
crazy.
Have we done? What incredible things have we created? Not as many incredible things as destructive things, that's for sure.
And that's why I love the work like Kurt Vonnegut's work, like Slaughterhouse 5. I think that's the right name. Yeah. So that idea of standing for peace, like where is that movement gone? Like where is that? And when you do see it, when you do see like 300,000 people walking across Sydney Harbour Bridge to say, we say no more to this. We don't want this anymore. But they seem to be sidelined, and the voices that are loudest in the media are still pushing for this.
But it's still side versus side. I mean, I guess coming around full circle, we're talking about, I guess, this supernatural stuff to highlight a state of being.
Yeah.
And I think inside a state of being, the way I perceive it is fighting for peace never works. Peace is here. So if we are peace, then the world around us is peaceful. And if we can take that responsibility, because this is what I think's taken away from us inherently as kids, before we really remember, we have a greater understanding and responsibility for the world and nature than we do when we're adults, simply because we're fully connected at that point and we become disconnected. But if we can find and live in that place, it's so difficult. Like if I see a large group of people protesting something, I see conflict, even if there's no conflict, because the idea for me is conflict. There is still one versus the other. It's got to come from here. It's got to be me, and I'm not versus anybody. And how about this one? Just not going to buy a ticket to the game anymore. I'm not going to wear the jersey. I'm not going to watch it on TV. I'm going to take all my football stuff and throw it away. Metaphor, sorry for any football fans. But I'm just not, and I'm going to remove it from my psyche because I'm aware that it's not entertainment anymore. It never has been entertainment. It's dire and sick.
I think this is where the type of personal revolution can involve acts that are, like painting a tank pink that happened,
Yes.
in after the Velvet Revolution in Prague, or that action of someone putting a flower into, a soldier's rifle.
Sure.
It's kind of the opposite. It's
It's a
interesting.
wonderful sign.
Yeah, look, it's interesting, and then we digress in a way, but it is sort of, I guess that we're just taking this conversation where it goes, and we're
Yeah.
opening that conduit up.
Well, I think like to touch on the connection back to, so we were going to share
How do we get back?
Stories. So we're going to share one or
place?
two stories. We're at the point of a long while ago to share some stories about the school we went to.
Yeah.
The reason being, it's a place where multiple people had experiences. So we talked about our musical experience there.
Yeah.
I tend to believe, I don't believe it's all about the person or all about the place. I think it's a magical mixture of all of the above. But some places themselves happen to, in older cultures, they might call them portals, places where energy seems to spin and align and kind of do stuff differently. And it's like a magnetism. And St. Columba's, where we went to, is full of stories. So, of course, it's a kids' school. Could be some kind of like, I don't know. Oh, once I saw this, and it just blows up into some kind of strange game, right? But you've got a lot of adults. So I've got two quick stories to share. They both come from adults. One is an old teacher of ours who was a teacher at high school when we went there.
Yep.
And this person was there late one night or late into the evening, last person in the school.
Yep.
And if we've got a photo of our school to flash up, the front, the main archway, outside the main archway, there's a car turnaround.
Yep.
And if you were to walk out of the archway as if you were going home, there was a big long driveway that was probably a kilometre and a half. It's quite a substantial driveway back to the main road. So there was a gate halfway down too that they used to close. So after school was closed, they closed this gate.
Yep.
So the teacher had walked down outside of the archway, and if you look straight, the driveway goes straight. To the left, there's not much of the building. It goes over to some science labs, and on the right, there's a big kind of the rest of the big sandstone building. There's a road that leads down, and if you follow that road, it goes around to the right to the old school canteen, janitor's shed, music rooms. Anyway. So teachers walked out, about to walk to the car, only their car is in the car park, turned their head and noticed someone walking down the road towards the old music rooms. This person happened to be wearing what appeared to be a monk's robe.
Okay.
So they'd noticed the monk and gone, "Oi, you, we're closed. You got to get out of here." No reaction, nothing. Monk just kept going. Our teacher had a very strange feeling, watched it and went, "I got to suss out what this is." So kind of took off after him. And as they were getting closer, the monk kind of went around the corner out of view. They got closer and closer. They went around the corner and they saw the monk walk straight into an old sandstone, became a maintenance shed. It was a small sandstone block, basically, with a door on one side of it. The monks walked through the door. And our teacher's gone up to the door and gone, "What's this?" The door's completely locked. There's a thing over it. They've gone around and looked in the windows. There's no lights on. Everything's off. So they got the hell out of there real quick. Now that's a story. Again, this could be made up. I wasn't there. But the person telling the story was pretty passionate about it. They're pretty affected by it because I had asked in all their years. I used to ask a lot of the teachers, "Have you ever had an experience?" So on all of their years there, that was pretty much the only one, but it was quite visual. And it ties into the most common, I guess you might call it, that would be a residual type haunting in our school where people see a monk. And quite commonly they would see the monk. So interestingly, our school had a lot of newer buildings on it. Yeah. But that old sandstone one, that's one of the original buildings. A similar story I heard about a monk was from Sister Anne, So I remember being at a family function, and Sister Anne was the principal when my sisters went to high school in the 80s. But she was a sister at when it was a seminary, and we had a thing called the B blocks, which was a big blonde brick building.
That's where the priest's accommodation was when they were training.
That's right. And there was those bathrooms down the bottom, which were our main school bathrooms.
Yep.
So people would come up from various Catholic colleges around the place and spend some time in the mountains to learn, and on weekends, and as we'd go on school trips.
Yeah.
So this is in the 70s. So the story goes like this. One night, there's a whole bunch of young teenagers staying at the B blocks. They're awoken by quite high-pitched screaming, some kids screaming. A bunch of people have come out of the B blocks to see what's going on. There's a kid that's run out of the bathrooms, the same bathrooms we were using, quite big, run out of the bathroom, white as a ghost, panicking. There's someone in the bathroom. There's someone in the bathroom. They've gone, oh, my God, some kind of pedophile. Right. So Sister Anne was there. They were about to go in. One of the teachers or one of the sisters about to go in, and out comes a monk. Out comes an apparition, which is see-through, but solid at the same time. This monk comes out as though paying no attention to anybody, comes out, goes along the whole front of the B blocks, and goes off down towards our old sport oval and disappears. There was about 30 people that witnessed this, adults and kids, and they followed this
ghostly monk.
Apparition, ghostly monk, until it just disappeared over an oval. So those two stories stood out for me. One, because the first one was someone who seemed really solid and trustworthy, like just wasn't the kind of person to get into that hippy-dippy shit.
Yep.
And the second one was also a pretty substantial person within the school system of St. Columba's who witnessed that with a bunch of other people.
It's interesting about this idea of the haunted monk, because I'm pretty sure that story exists not only in St. Columba's, but it's a reoccurring type of apparition that people see. It's like a pattern.
Yes.
It's and this is where I think, do some of these images belong to the collective psyche of us as people, that we keep recalling it? Because it brings me to one other place in the Blue Mountains that is actually the oldest colonial establishment in Blue Mountains, a place called Woodford Academy.
Yes.
And the haunting there, because this place was built in the 1830s, it has many different lives. It was a guest house. It was once a gentleman's house. I don't know what that means exactly. That's what's on the website. It's a gentleman's house. And for a long time, it was an arts academy, the Woodford Academy, a school for arts. I actually found a Dutch master's painting in that particular house many, many years.
Oh.
Yeah. And they cleaned it up only a few years after that. And now I believe it's in the Art Gallery of New South Wales on display. Dutch master was just hanging on the wall in this place in Woodford.
Nice.
So been there since the 1830s. And it was a very sad story that happened there. There was a lady by the name of Mary James. And in 1835, which is 190 years ago this year, 190 years ago, she took her own life. Now, apparently, as the story goes, her husband was quite abusive. She had a whole bunch of kids that were living at the Woodford Academy, and there was, some talk of, mental health problems going on for her, but that the husband had antagonized her to killing herself.
Right.
To a point where he said, "Oh, you don't have the guts to do it. Come on, do it." Like, it was really kind of very brutal. Trigger warnings. Not a great relationship. Is a understatement. And so she took her own life. And then a couple of years later, he was tried for what would you call that? An accessory to murder or manslaughter or murder in the second degree. But he was convicted of that, and I think that was overturned. Yeah. There was a whole investigation played back really long time ago. Anyway, it was a very, very sad thing that happened. And apparently the spirit of this woman, Mary James, is the ghost that haunts Woodford Academy. And it's interesting when you talk about people of, certain no-nonsense people. There's a person that was a guy that lived in Woodford for 70 years. He became almost like a groundskeeper after he retired as an engineer at the Woodford Academy. And he's gone on the record to say that he's seen this apparition. He's seen it with other people that were visiting the place and staying there.
What's it look like?
Well, this is the interesting. It's a white woman. That's the way that they describe the
Lady in
lady in
white,
white, the lady in white,
which is
all over the
again,
place. It's
yeah.
everywhere. The more I kept looking into this idea of the lady in white, it just keeps popping up everywhere.
All over
of
the
these
place.
kind of ideas, and so just coming back to this idea is this particular haunting? Is it something that lives inside the human consciousness, or is it something that we're seeing, or is it a combination of both? And going back to my good friend here, Jung, and the Red Book, he describes it as a representation of what you might see behind me, which is like the idea of the feminine, the anima that lives inside all of us, this idea of animus and anima. And this is a personification or an exteriorization of this particular internal theme that's going on there. So I don't know.
Well,
the lady in white is something.
I had a strange again. This is what we're here to discuss. Strange things that may or may not be connected. Right outside Woodford Academy, I was driving a friend of ours to Penrith, the same friend who happened to be with me at Springwood Cemetery when I had that experience. I was driving him from Wentworth Falls to Penrith, right outside, just as you get to that place where the Woodford Academy is. I'm just driving my car, chatting with him. It's morning time. All of a sudden, my steering wheel is not really doing anything. It's not steering the car anymore. I'm going about 80 Ks an hour. And I'm like, what the hell just happened? Then all of a sudden, it goes super limp. And I was like, whoa. So my whole thing, the car starts veering off. So I obviously slow right down, pull off the side of the road. The front wheel's fallen off my car, and it's just being held on by like the brake calipers. And we ended up literally right outside. So I had to call somebody, NRMA or somebody. So we waited there for 3 hours sitting outside Woodford Academy. It's a super weird place.
It's not a good spot to stop, no.
Man, we were talking about some weird stuff there. We were feeling some weird stuff there. And whether it's connected or not, who knows? Then they took my car when we got it towed to a repair place. When they let it down off the thing to be repaired, off the tow truck at the repair place, the bonnet of the car shoots up and a piece of spring goes through the air. The suspension on the other side, as they lowered the car, had broken and shot up through the freaking bonnet. So I was like, not a good day. But no, I had no idea if that's connected. It's not even worth debating whether it is or not. It's just really strange.
It's a strange thing. Well, interestingly, across the road from Woodford Academy, a couple of our friends have lived there for many, many years. And they have some stories about the lady in white, and we're hoping that they can come onto the podcast or share their story with us in some way. So that might be something we get to them to chat about. And they also talked a little bit about some portals that may have been playing out at St. Columba's as well. So a couple of connections there to this particular episode.
We're going to endeavor to get some real-time stories from a few people, teachers and stuff from St. Columba's. We know that something's going on there because there's so many stories over the time. I mean, is it human nature just to say something's old, there must be something weird going on? Or in my own experience, I have visited lots of old buildings. I currently live in Europe where there's buildings way older than any buildings that are in Australia.
Yes.
And it's the same vibe. I can walk sometimes into a new building and get either an overwhelmingly good or an overwhelmingly bad vibe, or just the vibe that the way I try to explain it is everything looks a little bit sparklier. Everything feels a little bit sparklier on a level of like, ooh, it's slightly exciting or something, you know? And I had that at St. Columba's, not all of it. There was parts of St. Columba's that certainly felt more alive than others. But I think this is some of the places we're going to now explore a little bit in the mountains. Total Rock is one of them. You know, Govert's Leap in Blackheath is another one. There's a bunch of places that we'll look at, but I'd love to get a few of love to see if Hursty might come on.
Yeah, talk about their place in Glenbrook. I know there's a bunch of people out there with stories, and we want to hear them. And it's just a way of opening up our own connection to that world that lives underneath the surface, that there's more to heaven and earth than what meets the eye, than what we can see. And
we're trying to make sense of it, right? For our own selves, but also for the benefit of, because I guess we realized the importance of, if we just live in this surface world, if we live in this place, nothing much is happening, and we need to drug ourselves, we need to drink ourselves, we need to buy ourselves the stairway to heaven, if you will. And something we touched on a little earlier, the whole idea of way back in Egypt,
Yeah.
the Amun-Ra, all of that stuff with the kind of like, you know, the whole idea is live your life in a way you get judged when you pass on, and your soul, your heart must be lighter than the weight of the feather of justice. And it's that idea that you have to be a good being, a resonant being. And if you are that, and then all of a sudden things change. This little business idea cropped up where you could buy these religious guys, these brothers of the sun. You'd go and you'd give them some wealth, and they would cleanse. So the original snake oil salesman.
Yes.
And I fear the model we're living under really started way back then at that time, because before then I think things are a little different. But like lots of things, it's going in a circle, and if we can kind of break that circle off a bit and go into a new area, I think that'll be a happy place for all of us.
Yeah, well, look, it's I think there's always someone trying to package things up and sell it in some kind of way.
Fuck, we got to stop it, man. We got to stop it.
Well,
This art, this is the first time. I mean, we're about to do something pretty substantial for us that we believe in, and I think it's the first time we don't actually care if
anyone pays attention or not.
Yeah. It's the journey and the process, even to this podcast. Maybe we're us and the crickets are the only one listening.
Yeah.
But you know what? So be it.
So be it. So be it. Hey, thanks to everyone that was a cricket watching this particular episode of Hidden in Plain Sight. It's been an absolute pleasure being here with you, with the lights that change in the background when things happen.
Specific times.
At specific times.
And only once. When every time you get into a certain frequency, it just happens once a podcast. Pink, purple, back to red.
Well, it might have something to do with this little hand that I have here, and it may have something to do.
Oh no, here it comes again.
With this book. I might pop something up at the end. So thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.